is approximately 6 kilometres long and 1.5 kilometres wide. Works 24/7, 365 days a year. Employs up to 700 people. That includes contractors. Some of those contractors will only come on site when there is a shutdown and they've got major maintenance to do. And when we had our mining boom, if you were directly employed by BHP and you were rostered on for Christmas Day and Boxing Day, you basically hit the jackpot, because on top of your normal wage, they didn't want you to take a sickie, so they gave you a little bit of an incentive to stay at work. So that incentive was an extra $1,800 a day if you came to work on those 2 days. I made sure I kicked my hubby out the door at 5 o'clock in the morning. When he came home, I told him about my great day and handed him a beer and said, right, you're going back to work tomorrow too. They don't do that anymore. It was only when the price of iron ore was extremely high and they wanted to make as much money as possible. So this building here to the left, this used to be their control room, and they controlled everything on this site up until 2012 from that room there, except the ship loaders. By 2012, BHP had finally completed their high-rise building down in Perth, and they decided with the cost of having fly-in, fly-out workers was getting too excessive. You have to pay for their airfares, accommodation and feed them. They decided why not use their high-rise to take the control down through to Perth. So that's what they did. They offered everybody their jobs down in Perth, most of which took them at a reduced rate of pay, because when you come to Hedland you do get an extra incentive to work up here. It's a bit like a hardship allowance, and so most people took them up on the job. The only stipulation was you couldn't live more than 45 minutes away from work, just in case you were required in emergency. So everything on this site is operated from Perth. Now BHP is not the only one that does that. Rio Tinto and FMG and Gina Reinhardt all control their sites from Perth. BHP's building's called IROC, which stands for Integrated Remote Operations Centre. So this building in front of us, and it will be to our left, this is the Locomotive Overhaul Workshop. This is where they do all major repairs to all the locos. They do all their full services of the locos in here. Full service will take 3 to 4 days. The engines that they run are SD70 build AC16, 4,300 horsepower electric diesel engines. So you can see here to the left a couple of locos. Underneath you can see their fuel tank. That fuel tank only takes a measly 18,927 litres of fuel. So imagine where that would get you around Australia. But for these locos, or the trains, that will only get them 1.5 round trips from Newman through to Port Hedland, back to Newman and then back to Port Hedland before they need refuelling. So this area we're going through now, this is the oldest part of the facility. Someone was standing up high at one stage and all the conveyor belts are all meeting and converging and going different directions. Everything's tainted with the red iron ore dust. They said it looked like a giant bowl of spaghetti, so they nicknamed it Spaghetti Junction. They still call it that now. If you've watched the movie Japanese Story, they did have a car chase through here. I bet they wouldn't be allowed to do that these days. Over on the right you see some stockpiles. Now these stockpiles are called the northern stockpiles, and they used to be a lot larger than this. They decided to help reduce the dust levels in the town by moving them through to the other side of the facility. On the other side of these stockpiles there used to be a primary crusher, which was the biggest dust creator for the town. You'll notice these stockpiles have got 2 different types of iron ore. You've got some that looks quite rocky and some that looks like sand. The rocky one is called lump, the other one is called fines. Fines is anything that is 6 millimeters or less in size. The grade of ore that they send out from here now is about 61 to 64% iron ore per tonne. The fines is a lot easier to process, so quite often it's quite a favoured product. When Mr. Hilditch did find the iron ore at the beginning, the grade of iron ore was actually 68.8% iron ore per tonne. Highest ever recorded grade of iron ore is 70% iron ore per tonne, so it was a very high grade ore, and even now this is still considered high grade. Now this building here to the right, this is called a lump screening plant. Quite often when the trains come in through to the town and they offload their iron ore, it will either go straight out to a ship or a stockpile, but sometimes it might need re-screening so they can size the iron ore. So it will be sent to the top of this building via conveyor belts, and this acts as a giant sifter. So there's a series of different size screens, and it just rattles and rolls and shakes the ore into the right size screen. Whatever lands on the very bottom screen is the fines. Then it goes out to the stockpile or the ships. So as we go over the rail bridge here, you'll notice some empty ore cars. These ore cars have been through one of the Orca Dumpers. You'll notice there's also two different types of ore cars. Some that only has ribbing on the inside and some that has ribbing on the in and the outside. So some bright spark has worked out that if you only have the ribbing on the inside of the ore cars, you could actually save in diesel. They've worked out that you can save up to $1 million a year per train. So they do have over 50 trains, so they do say that they're saving at least $50 million. So I hope they're giving you shareholders a little bit of that money back. Coming up to Orca Dumper number 2, and usually we can go right up to it, but unfortunately they're doing a little bit of creating a new dust extractor, so they've blocked off the road at the moment. So just up here on the left you'll see the Orca Dumper. The train is actually going through the Orca Dumper at the moment. When the train driver comes through to the facility here, he or she will then bring the train through to one of 3 Orca dumpers on the site. They will then get out of the train, and then their job is basically done. And all control is then taken over from Perth. Now we'll be able to see from the back end of the shed up here. Unfortunately we can't go past it at the moment. But inside that shed is a big round frame, and all the ore cars are attached to each other with rotary couplings. So they will then, once the train goes through, they will then clamp 3 ore cars at a time. They never disconnect from the train. Now just coming up here on the left where the train is, if you look at the back roller door, you can see there's a big round frame up there. So the 3 ore cars are clamped together to that frame and to the rail line. That frame will then roll 145 degrees, drop the ore onto a series of hoppers that goes 25 metres underground, lands on the bottom conveyor, coming out on the conveyor belt here on the left. So that all cars do not ever get detached from each other. So this framework here, this yellow framework, this is what's grabbing the train and pulling it forward. This is all controlled from Perth. just So if you've travelled between Newman and Port Hedland, you might have come across a few road trains. In fact, you would have come across several. There's actually 500 of those road trains coming in and out of Port Hedland every day. The majority of them are carrying iron ore. And one of those road trains, they'll have 3 or 4 ore trailers. They'll be full. Their full capacity over the 3 and 4 trailers they can hold is only 115 tonnes of iron ore. So if you look to the left there, you see those ore cars. Those ore cars are already carrying more than one of those road trains. They can hold 133 tonnes. Fortescue Minerals, they've got a bigger one. Theirs will actually hold 144 tonnes. So those road trains belong to the smaller mining companies